I'm using my crosscut sled to square up the ends. I'm just taking a little shaving off just to make sure they're perfect. I'm making the legs now. So the corner legs have two pieces that I glue together to make kind of an L shape. Right now I'm trying to line up the legs with the back panels. I'm going to use 5 small dominoes along the length. We'll have glue joints between the stiles and the legs, and there's a lot of glue area, so that'll be strong. So I'm using a little tape on my back panels to put my marks so I'm not writing directly on the wood, which I've already shellacked. Okay, they're all on there. I've clamped this together at the top, and now I'm just going to take my square and make my marks, transfer my marks. The shelves are going to be held up by these little brass clips and just goes into a hole. So I've carefully marked the height of all the holes and all the legs, so I can drill those holes now and before I assemble the cabinets. And it just fits right in there, nice and strong, looks good. Just like when I made the doors, I find it's going to be easier to cut the mortises for the hinges in the legs before I assemble the cabinets. So I use a knife marking gauge and just pick up a little notch there at each end of the mortise for the hinges, and then make those marks full width. This is a double pin marking gauge, and I've already set it up so that if I line it to the outside face of the leg, I can score both the inner and the outer lines for the hinge mortise. Okay, and then because I'm 62 and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, I'm going to use a black ballpoint pen to mark these lines. I'm going to attach the bottom to the legs using 2-inch long number 10 stainless steel screws, and so I've already drilled a countersink 3/8 inch, and now I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole for the screw. Now I'm getting ready to glue the legs to the back. So I'm going to use a product called Waxy Lit from Lee Valley. It's just a little waxy substance. It's a glue release. I'll put it on the edges of the wood, just a thin coat, and the squeeze out will then peel off. Putting this together is a bit of a challenge because it's so wide. The small K-body clamps make up for the fact that the frames for the frame and panels, the frames flex some and the panel's designed to float inside the frame, so you have to actually draw the frame up to the leg members somehow, and that's about as good as it gets. Here's a close-up of how I remove the waxy lid, or actually remove the glue from the surfaces that I've used wax lid. I'm taking one of these little plastic credit card type things, and you just scrape it off. Okay, now I've set the narrow sides back on top of the bottom piece so I can mark where the cutouts for the legs are. Had to use little clamps just to kind of make sure this is perfectly square because the bottom's going to square things up. And now I'll just go ahead and mark with a fine pencil where those cutouts have to be. I'm going to hold the top to the carcass using 3/8 inch diameter, 2 inch long dowels in each of the legs. I'm going to drill 1 inch deep holes in this 1¼ inch thick top for the dowels, and then I'll use dowel points to mark where these actually go on the legs. I've got blue tape here showing where each leg is so that I can place this on top of the carcass and have it line up properly. Now just a little piece of masking tape will hold these dowel centers in place when I turn this top upside down and set it on top of the carcass. Just in case you don't know what I mean by dowel centers, it's a little metal thing with a 3/8 inch bore and a little point centered, and you put it in the dowel hole, and now you can mark the position of the dowel on the other mating piece. So I've got to set the dowel points and do that with a dead blow mallet. Now the method I use to get these dowel holes drilled perpendicular to this face, axially with the leg, is I made a long block, a 2 inch thick block of wood, squared it up really good, and drilled a 3/8 inch hole in it so that my drill goes on through there. I'll line up the brad point of the drill with the mark from the dowel center. I'm going to go ahead and use my jack plane to just kind of shave off places that are a little bit high, get the best fit we can get. Here's the center post that goes in the front between the doors. In the top there's a dowel hole that will go into this dowel to secure to the top. And in the bottom I have a countersunk screw hole and it comes on through. I've made these two little stops. You can see a little better here. It will stop the doors top and bottom so that when they latch they'll stay nice and coplanar, nice and flat. I've also measured and cut a couple little grooves here for the latch on the, the key lock, and then there's holes for the shelf supports, the little brass shelf supports. Now you might wonder what I'm doing on the floor. Well, I'm installing the glass, and I'm having to go one by one each pane and remove the custom-made muntin strips, and then take the pre-cut piece of glass and fit it into its place. And then install the strips back in. And I'm using these little tiny 1/2-inch screws. It takes me 5 to 10 minutes to do a single pane, depending on how difficult it is. And that's it. It's in there real nice. Well, the shopsmith is coming in real handy for making the knobs. It's going to be 4 knobs for the 4 doors, and we want to make them look like old-fashioned electrical insulators because these pieces are being made for an electrical distribution company. Well, here's the wide cabinet complete, getting ready to photograph it. Thought I'd show you some of the details you haven't been able to see clearly yet. So here are the knobs that I'd worked on. They're shaped like old-fashioned electrical insulators because this is going to an electric distribution company. And you can see the little groove here where the wire would fit. And we got the locks. So let's go ahead and unlock the door. These doors fit rather tightly, so when I open them you feel a little rush of air. And the shelves are the same oak from the tree. And I want to just take you around back to show you that when I make my furniture, I make the backs as nice as the fronts, because someday you may want to use this in a room as a room divider, and you can do that. So I appreciate you watching this series of videos. I enjoyed making these pieces, and I hope you enjoy watching them. Thank you.